Hello and welcome to the Money Marketing Podcast. I'm Kimberly Dondo, Digital Content Manager, and this week we have news editor Michael Klimes asking whether compound interest really is the eighth wonder of the world. Take it away, Michael.
Weekend essay. Is compound interest really the eighth wonder of the world? I am not in the habit of questioning geniuses, especially in fields where I'm vulnerable, such as maths. But to quote Dr. Emmett Brown from Back to the Future, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. So here it goes. Albert Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, and is claimed to have said, "He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays for it." These words carry not only the gravitas of Einstein's authority, but also ring with genuine eloquence. The potency of compound interest is so powerful that anyone you speak to in the world of finance stands by it. This has certainly been the case according to my 7 years' experience as a pensions journalist. I have never met anyone who has called compound interest a load of bunk. I've also never heard anyone make such an argument in print or broadcast media. The truth of compound interest appears as self-evident as the view among economists that genuine free trade is beneficial to all parties. I've certainly read that it is the only point economists of all stripes are most likely to agree on. The reality of compound interest and genuine free trade in our modern world have a status akin to the world being round. Whatever you think of them, they are facts of life and affect us like gravity. Anyone who questions these will be given the look reserved to flat earthers. But there is use in playing the devil's advocate, not to mention it's fun to do. I believe the benefits of compound interest, to borrow a phrase from Einstein, are relative. Before I tell you why, I must share the journey to this perspective. This essay was inspired by Robert Gardner, who was the keynote speaker at Money Marketing Interactive London at the Emirates Stadium. I tweeted this comment from him that inspired many responses. He said, "We have 11 million children in the UK, and only 100,000 have a pension. If you invest £5 a day from when they are born, they will have £35,000 saved by 10. If you then stop saving, compound interest will get them 1 million by 60. End quote. Ryan Murphy, who works at the Citizens Advice Bureau, responded, "For most families, a pension for the children is not the priority. Firstly, they want to clear debt. Secondly, you want to secure your own future, as children have more time to build up their own savings. 3, you want to save for the children's university fees. 4, let the child save with higher rate relief, not your basic rate. Also, who gets paid per day? I don't have daily cash flow for £5 a day. I get £0 on 29 days a month. I could consider saving £150 a month, maybe." End quote. Berlin-based writer and editor Pete Carville added, "A £5 a day will be about £150 a month. I'm not sure how many families can afford that in their budget." Robert Gardner countered back and said, "The average family spends £1,300 on BOGOF deals a year they don't need. That's £100 a month, which is a good start. I think many, not all families, can make a start on saving for their future." All these points are valid, and connect to the observation that compound interest is the greatest ally to your savings the earlier you start. In other words, the money you save in the early years will give you the biggest bang for your buck. This is because these savings will have the longest time to grow until you draw on them and weather volatility along the way. But as these comments show, how much a person can save and when is all relative. Some can save before and more than others due to favourable circumstances, and so compound interest is more of a friend to them. That made me ask this follow-up question on social media. Is compound interest overrated? I believe compound interest, or the eighth wonder of the world, depends on your position relative to it. My theory was reinforced by a conversation with my friend, Aegon Head of Pensions, Steve Cameron. Cameron, who is an actuary and the ninth wonder of the world, has an insightful take on real growth rates. To be clear, that's investment returns minus inflation. He says, in times of high interest rates, it is the eighth wonder of the world. When you have low interest rates, it is not quite as magical as you think. So a 5% annual interest rate for 20 years makes £100 into £265. If it is just 10% over 20 years, it becomes £673. But if interest rates are 0.1%, then your £100 is worth £102 in 20 years. So the compound is very much part of the interest element. Therefore, if you have to use a real return over inflation, then it does not look as exciting. When you project the real growth rate, it is small and loses the wonderfulness. Aegon kindly provided a couple of tables and a couple of graphs that demonstrate the returns of compound interest when you have poor interest rates. They look at how much £100 can be compounded over 20 years and 40 years respectively. Aside from these tables, there are other considerations as well. Inflation can dampen the power of compound interest by reducing purchasing power in real terms. The Bank of England inflation calculator enables you to see how much £100 would cost, for instance, in 2000, and how much £100 in 2000 is worth in 2019. The infographic shows that inflation has eroded that £100 over the last nearly 20 years. One final point in all this was Gardner's suggestion pensions could be a vehicle for children to save. Peter Carville wrote on Twitter and said, I'd say that we need to rethink somewhat the idea of retirement. I'm a writer, and physically, I should be able to write until the day they carry me out, crayon in hand. Someone like a fireman may physically be able to do their job until the age of 50. This was followed up in a critique by chartered financial planner David Hearn, who opined, all the more reason not to put money in our kids' pensions. We barely know how our own lives will turn out, let alone our newborn kids. Lots of ways to save and compound money for children's benefit without tying it up in a pension for 57 years. Hearn is not dispelling the power of compound interest, but he argues its power can be harnessed in a different form than a pension. Which brings me back to my central point. Your line on compound interest depends on where you relate to it in time and space. The stars really do need to align for the eighth wonder of the world to materialise.
Thank you, Michael, for another illuminating weekend essay. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do keep up to date with all of our new releases via Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts from. You can also keep up to date with all the new content published on the Money Marketing website, as well as our Twitter and LinkedIn. See you next time.